Welcome to Discography, a 5 to 9 podcast where we go through an artist's catalogue one album at a time. This is the third episode of the series, focusing on the output of Queens of the Stone Age. We had our intro episode, and last time we reviewed the band's debut album, their self-titled effort. And this time, it's Rated R, their second LP. I'm Andrew Belt, 5 to 9 editor, and joining me for this series is Adam Reeve, editor of the Dead Good Music blog, and a purveyor of Queens of the Stone Age's music. So how are we doing, Adam?
I'm doing good, yes. Very cool to talk about my favourite band of all time. So
All good, all good. Just these are the things we want to talk about. So like we did with the self-titled, I'll try as far as possible with Wikipedia as my guide to run through a bit of the context with Rated R. So as we spoke about with the self-titled record, it was virtually a Josh Homme solo piece a la Dave Grohl when he set up Foo Fighters and just kind of getting this new outfit created, getting that interest and you know, pretty strong debut album created as well. But I think through that process, it kind of caught the attention of other musicians, and when you come to Rated R, things which are the same. You have Josh Homme, you have Chris Goss producing again, and then it's the first time where on a regular basis you have Nick Oliveri on bass. And here we have Gene Troutman on drums and Dave Catching on various instruments. Looking here, electric piano, lap steel guitar, B3. Don't even know what that is. There's a Wikipedia page for it. It's a Hammond organ, piano and string guitar. So, sorry.
of course, yeah,
Of course, yeah,
B3.
B3, yeah. We're expecting
I can't even do B2.
assuming there is. So, yeah, I mean, guest musicians. So I think there's another kind of stalwart first gets introduced with Mark Lanigan, who provides backing vocals on 2 of the tracks and lead on track number 8 here. And then, as another nod to the Dave Grohl Foo Fighters reference, you got Pete Stahl, who was in Dave Grohl's former band Scream, who brings in backing vocals on the second track here. So, tons of cooks, which becomes a bit of a thing for Queens of the Stone Age, at least in that early run. But we had Queens of the Stone Age self-titled in 98, and then this follows 2 years later on June the 6th, 2000. So I learned last time round you were 5 for their first album. So by this point you're 7. Also learned that 2007 was your entry point with the band. So you won't have listened to this in 2000. And interestingly, on the last episode, you said that actually the debut was the final piece of the Queens of the Stone Age jigsaw you listened to when sort of first kind of going back through their discography. So where does Rated R kind of fit in terms of when you were kind of looking back at what they'd produced after getting into them?
I think Rated R started. I think pieces of it started coming to me before I checked out the album in full. Because yeah, when I did sort of discover them in 2007, I was from then just always on the lookout for like, well, what are they doing now? Where are they? All that stuff. And it was a performance they did on MTV, I think for Dane Lowe's Bonzo show.
Not very well.
And and I think they performed for like its birthday or something.
Okay.
And there was a few tracks in their set list from there that are on Rated R, and yeah, they just sounded amazing and just sort of it convinced me pretty quickly to check that out. So I think Then the Lost Art, I'll Keep It a Secret was one of them, and In the Fade was another. And
Mm,
even just those two are just so different from one another. Like you've got obviously Josh singing on Lost Art and then Mark Lanigan doing In the Fade, but even just like the tempo and style and everything like that, just so different from each other that yeah, it didn't take long for me to want to dive into the rest of the album.
mm. Yeah, I think for me, and yeah, continue to shock you that it's only through this project I've listened to this one as well from beginning to end. So another one uh to wrap my head around and sort of brush up on some of the songs I'd missed out previously. But yeah, there are a few which I am quite familiar with, and I suppose like kind of touch points where um getting into rock music in that sort of time period. It was from 2000 that kind of Linkin Park were up and running, and then I was starting to get into that Kerrang era, and some of the touch points here. Feel Good Hit of the Summer, I remember being on a Kerrang compilation CD and just thinking,
Oh right.
who is this band? So this is before
Yeah.
their next album, which is when they really kind of landed, I think. But um you know it's a quite memorable song. Still Good Hit of the Summer. So
Yeah.
that like stood out, but at the time and still very early days of me, buying CDs back then, and obviously you had to be so much more selective, and compilations were a thing and a thing you wanted to buy so you could get a taste of all of that. That's where I got that. And then the Lost Arts of Keeping a Secret, I just remember being played so much on MTV2 and Kerrang. So that was another one which kind of was around that kind of time, maybe a little bit after when I really got into that sort of music, but was still kind of very heavily on rotation for rock music TV, and for a contemporaneous comment, R.I.P. So, and then yeah, Monsters in the Parasol is probably is the other one I've been aware of as well, and I think just through doing sort of Queens of the Stone Age compilations on streaming services more recently, that one is just yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. But but so then your review or your first listen to this would be so not too long after getting into them from 2007. And yeah, how do you kind of rate this and yeah, would kind of describe your feelings on the album and the songs?
They, I think personally, it's not an album I tend to return to too often. I think in terms of like their whole kind of discography, but I think when I do always tell myself that I'm underrated it by not revisiting it enough.
Mm,
Um, because I think it's here that you're kind of seeing that progression from the kind of bare bones setup they had for the first album to now just doing something completely different to the norm. Like we've had like multiple vocalists and I don't know, like so many different kind of styles and genres just thrown in one after the other as well. Um, while also somehow returning it to a somewhat catchy and mainstreamy sort of sound as well. There's a lot kind of going on, but it somehow all works together really well.
mm. Yeah, I think it it's funny actually because you would think now that he's got a band in situ that there might be a more cohesive sound, but as you say, what it does is bring in Nick Oliveri on vocals, and then it's the first appearance of Mark Lanigan with the band as well, and kind of signalling that I don't know. how to describe it, a kind of traveling band approach or whatever, and you know
Mm.
what he'd done with the desert sessions prior to creating Queens of the Stone Age, where it's just bringing in lots of other musician friends and just putting something together. But I think, you know, from speaking about their debut last time to then this time, this is their second album and as a full band. I'd say this is a progression overall. Um, we spoke about some of the filler tracks in the self-titled record here. I think there's still just a couple, but it's
Mm.
starting to close that gap. And as I've already kind of said, there's a 10 out of 10 track here. I think Monsters in the Parasol is just a phenomenal, catchy earworm of a song, and the essence of what makes Queens of the Stone Age so good. But probably also reflects the early versions of Queens of the Stone Age, that there's you know, overt drug references, which I suppose this album as well, there's a lot of that. And already we've referred to Feel Good Hit of the Summer, which once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. And it just has that
Mm.
memorable quality and kind of a head scratcher, but at the same time, you know, it kind of does what it says on the tin, really. You know, if I was going to festivals in 2000 and this had just come out, it's a weird comparison, but it makes me think of what Wet Leg are now to the festival scene with some of their songs. Um,
Yeah.
and that would be, you know, if I saw them on you know, the Reading lineup and I was going in 2000, that's what you'd want to hear, and everyone would be
Mm.
singing along to. So really capturing that zeitgeist. Um, but yeah, the Lost Art Keeping a Secret is just fantastic here. Um, and then yeah, I suppose it's also that progression to something a little bit more hardcore with Oliveri taking the reins on some of the songs, and kind of this early incarnation of Queens of the Stone Age, kind of fitting in both. Um,
Mm.
which I think, you know, with our more hindsight hats on, not that it sounds jarring, but it almost seems a little bit off kilter, that approach now, into what they've become, and also what Josh Homme set out to do, which was create this danceable rock outfit essentially, and then you have this stuff which is more hardcore and heavier, but certainly doesn't do any harm for its variety, and I do enjoy those heavy moments. You know, Autopilot. Well, actually, Autopilot isn't a heavy moment in that sense, but it's got Oliveri on vocals. Uh, very enjoyable. You got Better Living Through Chemistry, another drug influence song here, with some bongo percussion, intriguing fuzzy guitar, trippy vocal distortion and lyrics. There's a great guitar moment in here. Um, Unnecessarily long, I've got, but it's still a really strong track. Quick and to the pointless. This is seems to be another trend of theirs throughout their discography and career, is enjoying sort of pun-led tracks, even up until their most recent effort. But this one is where you get more of that hardcore or louder rock music, with Oliveri on vocals. And then In the Fade, as you referred to, which is the Lanigan track, and only through this time round is me hearing this for the first time. But
Oh,
I tell you,
really? Oh, wow.
yeah. So I'm not sure if they did a video for this or, um, but
No, yeah, I don't think it was ever a single, but
mm,
I really feel like it should have been.
mm. Well, for me, this is, with the exception of Monsters in the Parasol, it's up there with The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret, and then this one, and I absolutely love the reprise version of Feel Good Hit of the Summer. In some ways, I find more enjoyable than the entire Feel Good Hit of the Summer actual track. Like that bit, I just wish would carry on. It just, there's something about it. It's probably just
Mm.
the kind of cool at the beginning where just it's almost like a sigh from Josh Homme, where, oh, and then it just comes in like just randomly at the end of this, you know, slow but heavy track of In the Fade. The two together work really well for me. But yeah, it's fantastic. Agree with you 100% there. Then we have Tension Head, which is in the depraved vocal style of Oliveri, about drug dependency. And then yeah, Lightning Song, which this is another instrumental, which we had on the last album with Hispanic. What was it? Hispanic voices, was it? Impressions, sorry. And then
Impressions.
and
Yeah.
then here, it's like nice, but not too memorable. And before
Mm.
we have an 8.5 minute closing track of I Think I Lost My Headache, which again, more trippy lyrics, strong guitar. I've got here massively long outro. So they did, because on the last episode, I think you sort of said, glad they didn't stick with that kind of the futuristic outro they did for the end of the self-titled record. But what they did stick to is another kind of unnecessarily long final track.
Yeah.
This one I think is better, and there's also a
Mm.
slight bit of harsh sound for the ears towards the back end of this. So um,
Yeah, it's very, yeah, a lot of horns, a
mm,
lot of loud horns, and not really much sense in what noise they're making.
yeah. So but by this point, album number two, it's almost like a signature move that they're
Mm.
doing this. So um, but yeah, to comment further would negate the need to go into the next album and everything else.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like I say, for me, overall, the first album, fantastic. This one sees a development. It's more varied, kind of Queens of the Stone Age, and the filler tracks are reduced. So for you, how would you sort of square Rated R?
Um, I would I'd probably say it probably on the lower end of the discography. Um, but like you say, I do appreciate the level of variation and expansion it's trying to bring to the Queens of the Stone Age sound. And I mean, like you said, for the self-titled there, like for Rated R, there are a lot of kind of classic 10 out of 10 kind of songs, but there are also songs that might not necessarily fit the vibe and the odd filler track as well.
Mm.
But
And
I'd say it's not it's not by any means a bad album. It's just compared to everything else they've done.
yeah, on the lower end of the spectrum there. And
Yeah.
I mean, it is a high bar, and then we know
It's yeah,
we know
exactly
that.
right.
But yeah, no, I think I I feel like from our summaries, I maybe hold it a bit more highly in esteem, perhaps. But you know, we now then need to select which of those would join our long list, because on this journey we're looking to create a top 20 Queens of the Stone Age tracks from their discography. Last time round, you kept it quite slim with the two tracks, even though there was a third which was interesting you, but you decided to go with them. So, which tracks off Rated R are going on your long list for this best of?
Um, I think we might end up matching, but I think definitely Lost Art of Keeping a Secret and In the Fade, and I probably would put Monsters in the Parasol in there as well.
You've called it. So yeah, exactly the same three, which I would put with probably a slightly different emphasis. Where Monsters in the Parasol is dead cert. It's got to be in my top 20.
Mm.
And the Lost Art of Keeping a Secret and In the Fade definitely have to be in the mix at the very least. I suppose in some ways I was expecting you to maybe go for Feel Good Hit of the Summer, because by me not wanting to pick it in the top 20, I feel like I'm probably under valuing it versus maybe a majority view, but clearly we're aligned on that. So
Mm.
and whilst like it's clearly got its appeal, I feel like if we're saying out of all the great tracks they've created, I don't think this is quite that top category.
Yeah. I think maybe if we say we were doing this in the year 2000, then it probably would
Song
be
of the
up
year.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's some interesting tracks back then. So there we go. So we've run through rated R, and next up it's a biggie. Songs for the Deaf. So do look out for our fourth episode on this discography series. And yeah, you can stay up to date with 5 to 9 by following us on Instagram or YouTube. And you can keep up to date with the Dead Good Music blog, which Adam runs, by following @deadgoodmusic_ on Instagram. Thanks for listening.